Hey, it's Jason Nast. I have the pleasure and the privilege to interview an amazing guy today here on The Big Insider Secrets. You come here because you want to know what's happening really, like behind the scenes, not the stuff that everybody puts out on the internet, not the stuff that everybody talks about. When you're talking to your waiter and he's telling you he's a real estate investor, obviously you don't want to get advice from your waiter on real estate investing. So I reached out to my good friend and coach, Ken Spohn, who is an amazing real estate investor, and he's going to give you the inside scoop, like what they don't want you to know about real estate investment. So we're going to have a really great conversation right now, and I hope you enjoy this episode of The Big Insider Secrets. So Ken, tell me all about what you're doing, and don't leave any details out because my listeners want to know.
Yeah. That's great, and thank you for the intro. Yeah, I would say, before I even get into that, I just kind of give some background of, my real estate investing career. I bought my first property in 1993. It was a duplex, and there was a guy named Carlton Sheets.
I remember Carlton Sheets, yeah.
You've heard of him. I saw him on an infomercial, and I bought his course. And then at the time I was teaching karate. I owned a karate school for 13 years, and I had a student that he did private lessons. He didn't like doing group lessons. He just wanted to be one-on-one with the instructor. So yeah, we did private lessons, and after class I was telling him about that. He goes, "Oh, I can show you how to do that." And within, I don't know, a couple of weeks, I had an offer in on a duplex and no money down. Yeah. And within, I'd say about 2 months, we closed it. And wow. Real deal, no money down.
That's great.
Yeah. And then I lived in the bottom half and rented out the top half, which covered my mortgage plus, I think, about $75 a month.
Nice.
Positive cash flow. Yeah.
First deal, positive cash flow. That's great. So similar things. I got started in real estate investment in about I think it was 91, 92, but that was a thing where I bought my personal home. And then I realized much later that your personal home is not an investment. Yeah, they like to tell you at the mortgage company, like, this is the greatest investment you'll ever make in your life. And the reality of it is it's a liability because I'm paying my own mortgage. Once I figured that out, I did a similar thing. I went and bought a little condo, and I was not as skilled as you because, like, I put money down. I used a bunch of my own money and stuff, and I know you're going to talk about that a little later. But my first investment property was like a little condo here in Phoenix, Arizona, where I'm at. I know you see the island behind me. I'm not on the island at the moment, but I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and that was my first investment property. So I totally get that. And I know Carlton Sheets. I'm familiar with his work, and later I got involved with a guy, Bob Allen, who taught me some stuff, and then we kind of learned from there. So one of the things that I struggled on when I began my real estate investment stuff was it was all dependent on me having the cash. Mm-hmm. And I think when I talk to you about your program, it's not that at all. Like, you have a whole different system so that it's really, I hate to say it's not out of pocket, but literally it's not out of pocket. Is that right?
That is correct. So if you're spending your own money, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. So I'm excited because I'm going to learn a lot here today too, as well. So how does that work?
Yeah. So, in fact, I'll give you another, for instance. About a year later, after I bought a bunch of other properties and all no money down, I decided to go big, and I bought a 29-unit apartment complex. Not only did I have no money into it, I walked away from the closing with $25,000.
Wow, that's good. Now, see, that's what I remembered about Carlton Sheets. He was talking about, when I heard of him, he was talking about apartment buildings. Yeah. And so I remember that stuff. So So how does that work? Like, it's not like you just walk down the street and make an offer. You don't go to MLS and start looking things up, right? Is there like a secret behind that?
Yeah, so most people get this part wrong, and they will, um, go find a property and then try to convince people to invest with them.
Nah.
And yeah, that may work. What I do is I line them up first. I'm like, "What are you interested in investing in?" And then they
Got it.
tell me, "Well, yeah, I'd be interested in doing a duplex, and then I tell them the rate of return. And it all depends if they want to do a fix and flip, they want to do buy and hold. Um, so it's just a conversation, and then they can use their IRA money if they want. They can put it into an IRA, uh, self-directed IRA. Okay, so they can actually write the check for
401ks,
that.
things like
Hmm.
that, 401ks and stuff like that.
Yep,
So what you're saying is you can actually use your retirement money to invest into your retirement.
exactly.
That's
So
actually a good idea.
let's say you did a fix and flip, and you invested 50 grand into the fix and flip, and it returned 60 grand. That 60 grand goes in your retirement account.
That's actually, and I'll tell you what, you doing things like that seems to make a lot better sense than letting some corporate guy manage it at a what 3% rate of return or something like
Yeah,
that. I mean,
rate
how
of
long
inflation.
how long does a fix and flip take?
90 days usually. That's what we market for.
So if you're making an extra 10 grand every 90 days in your retirement account, I can tell you, I unfortunately, I'm a little embarrassed to say that I did spend a few years in corporate America. They never got me those kinds of returns. I think that that's still sitting in their little kitty, and they're making, I think, about a 3 to 5% return annually, not every
Yeah,
not every not every 90 days.
right.
Wow. Okay, so that's
Yeah,
brilliant.
and that's just one way, right? So there's a lot of different ways, a lot of different avenues, and I've pretty much I would like to think I've done them all, or at least explored them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if somebody comes to me with a deal, and I've done over 150 deals,
Okay.
I can just in a couple minutes figure out a new solution to it.
Got it.
And
Creative financing is really where it's at. And
yeah,
again,
well,
when I was investing, I thought I was doing creative financing by like, shuffling my my kids college fund into my account for a little bit so I could I mean, but that's not really what it's about for you.
no.
Yeah.
Now, so and the other problem beginner investors have is, they'll ask me like, "Hey, you want to partner up with us?" And sure, I'll partner up with you, and I want 50%. They're like, "I'm not giving you 50%." Well, you got 100% of nothing right now. How much do you
Right,
want?
right. Yeah,
Okay.
that's true.
So that's like don't be afraid to give half of it away or a portion of it away, because that's just the name of the game. I mean, when you do hard money loans, um, which is usually 80% of purchase price, 80, 90%, depending on the lender, you're giving up a chunk of your profits to that lender to do a non-recourse loan.
So let's explain let's explore a little bit more about that hard money loan thing. So I'm not quite sure how that works. So what happens in a hard money loan situation? What does that mean?
Yeah, so typically, I like to use $100,000 property just because it
I
makes
like
life.
round numbers. Yeah, that's good.
So let's say I pick it up for 70,000, and he's going to loan me 80% of that, which would be 56,000, which means I got to come out of pocket for 14 grand.
Got
So
it.
I'm going to go find an investor with 14 grand to put up the money. Okay,
Got
now I'm
it.
going to give him a little piece of the action. Okay, and then I'm going to find another investor, maybe the same investor, to finance the rehab costs. Let's say
The
that
fix.
was 20,000, right? So now I'm
Got it.
into it for 90. It's a $10,000 spread. Probably not something I was going to do anyways, but
Right, right.
just for the sake of this conversation. So the hard money lender lends on the asset only, right? He doesn't care if I got good credit, bad credit, because he's lending at 56 grand on a $100,000 property.
Got
So
it.
if you default on it, he'll just take it back and sell it to somebody else.
Takes property, sell to somebody else. So
Yep.
this is good for people who don't have a lot of cash flow. If they don't have a ton of money in the bank, like you said, you could literally get two or potentially three investors. One would be like a hard money loan guy who would just loan on the loan on the house. One would be the guy who would cover like the 20% down, and then another guy to cover the cost of the fix and the flip. So you
Yeah.
do all that and you spread it out and you give them a little percentage of, or even a medium or big size percentage of the profit. And if at the end of the day, let's say instead of 10,000, let's say you make $30,000 on a property,
Yeah.
how would that percentage kind of split up between the guy who gave you the hard money loan versus the initial investment and the fix up investment?
Yeah, it all depends. I mean, I kind of look at it like, what are they making now, right? And I want to make them probably double what they're making now, if not more. So maybe 5% of the net profit, maybe 7%. It all depends on the deal.
Okay.
But in talking about creative financing, so the first commercial building I bought, and I actually ran my karate school in it. I got really creative. So the bank wanted 20 or 30% down, which was money I didn't have. Let's just say that.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact amount. It's probably like 30 grand. And so instead of poo-pooing the deal and walking away from it, I went back to the seller and I said, hey, you want to carry back a second for the 30 grand? And he said, sure. So I went into that property, no money down.
Great.
And yeah, and ran my karate school out of there for years. And
That's
it was,
awesome.
plus I had a tenant upstairs, two tenants upstairs, and then one in the back, another commercial in the back. So they basically covered more than my monthly mortgage.
Nice. See, and that's good. So that's kind of like the hard money loan, and that's a little bit of creative financing. We have the seller carry back.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me a little bit about like how you find the cool properties. Like, how does that happen?
Mm-hmm. It's called legwork.
Legwork. Okay.
Yeah, but I would say the biggest asset is networking. I actually have people call me all the time and say, "Hey, I got this property. I don't know what to do with it." And look at the numbers. If the numbers make sense, I'll just make them an offer. And usually it's a lot less than what they want, but they're making something, so
Right.
it's a win-win. So that's a big one. And then just got to be diligent about going through Craigslist and going to real estate meetings and talking to people. And yeah, it's kind of got diluted a little bit. It wasn't like it was 20 years ago. Now there's a lot more beginner investors,
Yeah.
which create opportunity too, because they get over their head.
Yeah.
And sometimes they got to come in and save them. And they got to be willing to take a loss, because I'm not going to take the loss because they
Right.
jacked it up.
Right.
So I might offer them 20,000 less than what they want, but now the headache's gone.
It's funny because I joked earlier about the waiter, but I actually got a deal like that from a waiter one day who was telling me it was a place I went regularly. It's like I go in there and like, oh yeah, and so I always ask him like, hey, how's your investments going? He's like, oh man, I don't know what to do. I bid it wrong. I did it, and so we got the deal and exactly the same thing. And the best kind of creative financing, best part about that was is I came in. He had already secured the property. It was in the fix up that he couldn't figure out how to fix it up the right way. And so I came in as a partner with them, but I didn't have to do any financing whatsoever other than the actual fixed cost. So I was the investor in the fix-up costs. But I also had a small crew, because I had, at that time, at 13 properties we were managing. I had a small crew that just came in and banged it out quick. And so I actually got one from an investor, a beginner investor who got totally upside down and couldn't figure out how to get out of it himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love those too. Those are good. Those are good.
Yeah.
So, but those things come few and far between. In your coaching, do you teach a system for actually how to find these properties?
Yeah, but it's got to start with a foundation. So the foundation is finding your buyers, find out what they want, Because if you don't know what they want and you bring them a property, nobody's going to buy it.
Right.
Right. But if I got 10 buyers, cash buyers, and a property comes to me, I know exactly who to call instantly, mark it up 5-10 grand, and it's just a paper shuffle from there.
So in that scenario, you're literally just paper shuffling it. You're basically finding a property at a screaming deal, turning it over to another investor for a, maybe not screaming deal, but for a good deal, so that there's profit in it for you and then there's profit in it for them.
Yep. Yeah. So the last deal I wholesaled, I picked it up for one contract was for 128, and then I flipped it for 136, and then I got the seller to back off another $3,000. So I think I made like 11 grand on it.
And then the investor you flipped it to did all the fixing on it, or did you do that?
Yep. Yeah, he sold it. He fixed it up and sold it for like 256 or something. He made a pretty good chunk of money.
Pretty good chunk of money there. So how do you approach? So kind of what we're talking about right now is we're talking about a couple of different things. You mentioned this kind of a buy it, a paper shuffle, I guess you called it, where you kind of secure the property and then send it to somebody else, an investor you already have kind of under your belt. You know they're looking for a 3-2 with a garage and a pool, and you go, okay, great. I'll flip it to that guy really quickly and make a couple grand or 10 grand or so. And then there's other ways where you actually go in and you fix it up. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I like to keep the cash coming in, because if you just do one, like if you're just doing wholesaling, you can make a good living, but the chunks of money really come from the fix and flip. So if you're doing one or two of those at a time, you could easily make 100 grand a month.
So, it's funny because I was actually just talking about, we're really casually at this point talking about like, oh yeah, you make 10 grand off this, you make 12 grand off this. And you just threw out a big number. A lot of people are going to be shocked by that number about, flipping and fixing and making 100 grand a month. But the reality of it is, I mean, if you and I kind of ground ourselves for a second, a lot of people, like 10 grand in a month would be like an incredible life changer for them. Like they don't, it's not, these are not numbers that are in the scope of reality for them. I mean, I know someone and she's an adult woman with children, and she's going to work making $15.65 an hour. So like, so to talk about 10 grand, even 100 grand, like that's like 100 grand, that's $1.2 million a year. So, but these numbers are actually like possible because it's real estate. Like this is one of those games that you just can't make that kind of money in any other, and really in any other market, like especially with nothing down. like I can't go into the stock market and flip it in a couple of days and make 100 grand, but you can in the real estate market. So you talked earlier. So you talked earlier about.
I was just gonna say that my best month ever, I think, was about $206,000.
Wow, that's great.
I flipped a property. No, I fixed and flipped a property. So, I made a big chunk there. I don't remember the exact amount, but then I wholesaled the property for like 75 grand in a paper shuffle, and it was kind of unique. I walked outside the door. I knew exactly who to call. Called them up, gave him the address. So I'll call you back in 5 minutes. He called me back. He said, I'll take it. He came to the house, gave me a check for 10 grand right there just to secure it.
Yeah.
And I walked away, I don't know, 3 or 4 days later with 75 grand.
Nice. That's a beautiful thing right there. And the cool part about what you're teaching is you're teaching like those things, okay, in what we'll call the real world, like what people talk about. Those things are the gems. Those things are the ones that are few and far between. But what you're going to be teaching people is like how to be in the right circle to find those deals, and how to can make the right connections to get those deals. And not only get them, because getting them is only half of the battle. The other side is flipping them and getting rid of them. So you got to get them and get rid of them. So what I hear you saying is you're not doing traditional, like you're not calling up your realtor and saying, find me a really good deal. And you're not calling your realtor and saying, hey, I got a really good deal. Let's try to sell it. That's not happening. Okay.
No.
So this is really kind of an investor to investor situation.
Yeah, it's definitely a B2B. I won't say I've never worked with realtors,
Mhm.
but I try to avoid them because they can F up a deal really quick. And you know, when you're dealing with even 10 grand, you don't want somebody in there just screwing it up because they have an opinion about something.
Right, right, right.
And most of the properties that I buy and sell are as is. You take it as it is. So
Yeah,
there's no conditions, and it's all cash. So
yeah.
we don't have to worry about, 3 months down the road the seller doesn't qualify.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, there's a lot of benefits to it, and it's unemotional. It's like they either like it or they don't. It's all about the numbers.
Right. As well, again, when I was investing, again, I was doing it the wrong way. I was literally looking on MLS. I was watching the properties. I did get a couple of pocket deals where I knew the house was going to be listed before it got listed, and I was able to, to acquire. But one
Yep.
of the things that back then that happened for me was understanding that I would say this. The worst thing in the world is to walk up to a house and go, oh, I really like that house. Ooh, that's got a great kitchen. Ooh, because that's almost doomed for people who are going to be doing fix and flips. I remember the very first house I did as a fix and flip. And it was a situation where I'm embarrassed to say, but this is exactly what happened. I walked into the property and it was in great condition. It was really nice condition. There was the worst part about it were the doors looked like junk. They were just horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And the carpet was terrible. They had obviously had animals in there. It reeked when I walked in the door, and it was just nasty. I walked in the door. This is the God's honest truth. My daughter was going to space camp at the time. And so I bought the house that was near the space camp in California. And we lived in the house on the floor in sleeping bags for 3 weeks while she was in space camp. And here's what happened. I went in, I tore up the carpet, found hardwood floors underneath it.
Nice.
Polished them up, took all the doors off, painted all the doors, and I replaced all the little the electrical plates from the old gray beige kind of nasty ones to white ones. And then my ex-wife showed up for a weekend and said, oh, we have to remodel the kitchen and we have to update this and we have to put a new pedestal in. I'm like, this house is like in great shape. I'm not doing any of that. She left on Monday. I posted it on MLS with a realtor on Monday afternoon, and we had an offer and sold it on Tuesday morning. So the entire fix and flip was ripping up the carpet and polishing the floors and replacing the light sockets and the door. Amazing thing though, we made $65,000 on that one property. In a matter of fact, the funny part about it was someone had commented because it was on MLS, came off MLS for like 5 or well, I guess it was 3 weeks total. Came off MLS for 3 weeks and went back on for 80 grand more, and I so 50 grand more, and there was a bidding war. I have a strategy for bidding wars, so I did that. Again, this is old school. So the reason I bring that story up is because sometimes it's just that easy, but it's not always just that easy. So, and at that time I was doing all the work, like me, my family, and we were all just coming in there and doing it. So do you recommend that strategy where you're doing all the fix yourself, or?
I recommend that you get your hands dirty at least once.
Uh-huh.
And it may not be that you're swinging the hammer, but you're involved in it. You're involved in the whole process.
Got it.
At that time, after that, you can maybe hire a part-time GM or somebody, a project manager, to handle it. But you want to know the process of doing a real even a gut job, if you take it down the studs, you want to know, all right, how do I get an electrician in here to put in a new panel and a new plumber to do all the new plumbing and stuff like that.
So do you have connections in that world, or do you teach people how to get connections in that world? How does that work for your students?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's really important. Because if you hire the wrong people, they can crash and burn your whole project pretty quick.
Right.
They can eat up some funds really quick. So yeah, you put them on a draw, and you say, this week you're going to get X amount, and this is what I expect. So you're not, hauling out or shoveling out 20 grand to finish the project when you got 4 weeks left.
Got it.
You probably won't see that guy anymore.
Got it.
You want to give them enough that they're happy and they want to keep coming back.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's really good. So in this is the thing that scares me as a real estate investor. There is this TV channel called HGTV, mm-hmm. and it literally makes it look like any weekend warrior can become a real estate investor. And they go in there and they do those, why buy a new house when we can fix up your house, and let's show you how easy it is. The one thing that I always see when I see those shows is I'm going to say, like, every single time they're always over budget and they're always running out of time. Is that normal, or do you manage it differently so that you're not always stressing out because you're over budget and out of time? Like, how do you manage that in your scenarios?
Yeah, so we do put a time limit on it. It's just an estimate.
Right.
And then as far as the over budget, I usually do 10% of the project costs as a contingency.
Okay.
And yeah, sometimes it goes over, sometimes it's less. I mean, you can't stress about it, because you start stressing about it, you're losing focus on the bigger picture, which is to get the project complete, and then in a timely manner. And then, how do I get my next project?
Right. Okay.
Because if you're stuck there, it's hard to look for something new.
And the other thing about it is this is the key to this, I think, is that remember always with your system, you're not using your own money anyway.
Right.
You might be cutting into your profits, but you're not using your own money to do this work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's a critical piece for a lot of people, because I know I've been on projects in the past where I've had a $20,000 budget of my own money. And when it was getting to 15, 16, 17, I'm starting to panic. I'm starting to freak out. Like, if I can't. So you're talking a different story with your stuff, though.
Yeah,
a lot less.
I'll set them up right away. I'm like, if the project's 20, the rehab cost is 20, and they got 25, they're just not a candidate. I'll just tell them, this thing might go over 30, 35. We just don't know until we open up the walls. And but I just prepare them for that, and they get compensated for it too.
Right. And again, everybody wins at the end of the day. That's the idea. So I'm going to talk about a scary subject right now, and that is the loss, because I know, again, I've gone through this. We all have gone through 2007 or 2008, 9, and 10. We all went through it. So I'm going to tell you a little story about mine and how I manage loss, and I want to know how you manage loss, because when I did this, the impending doom was coming, but nobody believed it. Like, everybody thought it was just going to keep going forever. And at the end of the day, what happened was I was leveraging properties that I had, refinancing for the equity, because there was just so much equity coming out there, pouring out of these homes. And then I started buying properties for cash in another area, like in a place. Again, I was in California, so it was super expensive in California. Like, literally, you couldn't buy a house in my town for under 500 grand. And they were like ramshackle shacks that were falling down. So we were talking big numbers there, but that's because that was California coast. So what we would do is we'd have our property, we'd refinance it. We might take 100 grand or 300 grand out of it. And then we would turn around and buy like one or two $100,000 properties. I bought a few in Oregon. I bought some in Tennessee. And then when the crash happened, basically all of these little cashed out properties that we owned outright were covering enough to cover my mortgage on my house, my own personal house, and the other investments I had there. So we're in a high time right now. We're on that rise. Property values keep going up, and this is a perfect time to do these fix and flips, because by the time you buy it and the time you sell it 90 days later, you've already got some extra equity in it anyway than when you bought it. So this is a perfect time to do that. But we have to be aware that someday, somewhere, somehow that's going to turn. Mm-hmm. If that happens, how do you manage that risk? Because the way I look at it, and I'm guessing here, tell me if I'm right, that you're really only holding these properties for about 90 days. Yeah. So worst case scenario, you might, instead of making $100,000 on the property, you're only going to make 75, which I know a lot of people think I just took a $25,000 loss, but the reality is you're still $75,000 cash in pocket. So is that kind of how you manage that because it's short term, or is there other things you do to hedge against the possible impending doom?
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot to be said about that, and it's more conversation than we have time. But I'll try to put it in a nutshell. Right. I was one of those people that took a big loss, and looking back at it, I could see, I see how you did it. That I would probably do that, now. But what I was doing is I was leaving 80% equity in all my properties, and I thought, well, if the market tanks, 10%, even 20%, I'm still okay.
Right.
And and there were some of my properties that dipped 70%. Yeah. Within 6 months.
Yeah.
And you just can't recover from that. And the second lesson I learned was I should have walked away earlier.
Yes.
Just handed in the keys, but I had, I don't know, $25,000 nut every month, and I was trying to save it. So trying to save a sinking ship,
Right. I understand.
Yeah. So, but I would do a little bit differently is take some of that cash, buy new properties, and put them into a family trust that the creditors can't get that, just structure it in a way that I'm set up if the market tanks or not.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we do. And I like that you have a strategy in your training that helps to teach that part. Because one of the things that I always learned in investing in real estate is that, it's not only the entry, it's not only getting the property, but it's the exit of the property as well. If you don't have a good solid strategy for exit, you're done. And and that was a key. So do you do fix and holds? Do you do rentals?
I'm not doing those right now.
Yeah. Okay.
And the reason being is we're at the top of the market, so that bubble could bust. If there is a bubble, right, it could go tank. But I've seen some indicators that it's on its way. It's getting near. And I also have a connection with a $100 million hedge fund. So when that does happen, I'll be starting to buy up properties. Quickly.
And honestly, that's what I did. It's funny because we talk about the great loss of 2008 and all this sort of stuff. The funny part about it is I made a ton of money in 2008, 9, and 10 on real estate.
Yeah.
Because it was the key was to have the connections, the investors, and all that when the properties tank. So people make money in an up market, but you can also make money in a down market, like you're saying. Yeah. And I assume, and again, if I'm wrong, please let's correct this because we're trying to educate our people. You have strategies that you will implement in that scenario too, so you'll be teaching that to your students as well.
Yeah. So I had a good buddy of mine. He made $1 million in just over a year, selling to hedge funds.
Great. That's awesome.
And all he did, it was just a big paper shuffle. Yeah. And he's retired now, but
That's good.
yeah,
That's
and,
good.
so that's just one strategy.
So when you look at the whole picture of real estate, you look at it now as like, this is the best time to get involved in investing in real estate. And when we say investing, we're not talking about buying a home for yourself to live
Right.
in. We're talking about investing in real estate, fixing, flipping, wholesaling, and then so now earlier you talked about this deal where you got this like screaming deal where you made a $75,000 profit on one paper shuffle transaction, and then the guy sold it and made like another 100 grand on it once he sold it and fixed it and flipped and sold it. So in that scenario though, when you buy a property at just such that sweetheart of a deal, are you ever tempted just to hold it anyway, or do you just follow the system and do what you do, and that's consistency is the key?
Yeah. Yeah. I go in with an intention in mind,
And
the intention is to flip it.
good. Okay. That's good.
There's never any wavering from that, because it's unemotional. It's all about the numbers.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think when you start to feel like, this is a good keeper, it's like, nope, you're starting to think with your heart instead of your head, I remember the first transaction I ever did that was a numbers deal. I never saw the property. The first one, I never saw the property. It was pure numbers. I did have someone walk the property. It was in another state. They walked the property and said, yeah, it looks good. Looks like it has good bones. It could be a rental. It could be, and I was like terrified. But the one thing that kept grounding me was the numbers work.
Yeah.
Like under any circumstances, like the numbers work. The power turns on, the gas works, the water works, there's no leaks. And I'm getting it at a screaming price. I can rent it out for twice what the mortgage would be. Like the numbers work. And I was panicked. But you know what happened? I bought it and the numbers worked. and I didn't waver. I didn't get passionate. I didn't get like all gooey about it. It worked. The numbers worked. And that property is interesting because that one property today, my daughter, it's a coastal property up in the coast of Oregon, and my daughter lives in it. So nice. Like the numbers worked, everything worked perfectly, and now it's her property. So she gets to enjoy the coast view because the numbers worked back in 2005 or whatever.
Right.
So it's a brilliant strategy, and I agree wholeheartedly with you. You don't get passionate, you don't get emotional. If the numbers work, you do it. And the other key is if the numbers don't work, you walk away.
Yeah, you don't try to force the numbers because they still won't work out.
Yeah, I in the beginning of this conversation, you talked about that one deal. You kind of started using numbers. You said, well, really the margin's only about 10 grand. I wouldn't even do that deal. And that's the key, is that when you start to see those numbers, a lot of people who are, I don't know, my audience is kind of a range. There'll be people out there that are just, going to a job and they're making their wage, whatever it is. And there are people who are hustlers out there. But regardless of where they are, when there's a $10,000 paycheck sitting in front of you, that gets exciting. Mm-hmm. But the reality of it is that's also risky. Like at that point, you look at the numbers, you're going, it's just an edgy number. I'm not sure. Yeah, but it's 10 grand in my bank account. Well, maybe not. So you teach that. I'm confident.
Yeah. Just learning to walk away. Like so here's what I do is I kind of look at like a $40,000 spread. If I'm doing a fix and flip, I look at a $40,000 spread, and it may change depending on the property, but that's like the bottom.
Yeah.
Because if I make half of that, it's a good day.
It's still a good day. Exactly. Yeah. It's still a good day. Yeah. Great. And so in your program, do you actually like help people not only learn the process and all those sorts of things, but do you kind of like, do you get in the trenches with them at all?
Yeah. So I will do pretty much anything to have them win. Okay, and if that means getting in the trenches with them, I will. As long as they're willing, and here's the key, they're willing to learn.
Yeah.
And if they're not willing, they're not going to be my student.
Then they're not a good candidate. I totally agree with that. I
Yep.
find we a lot of us have shelf help. It's stuff we bought and we put on the shelf. We never actually looked at. I totally understand that. I've been involved in that in my life. And then the other thing is, the key is it's not only a willingness to learn, but it's actually a willingness to do the work. Like they have to do the work, right? You said earlier you're willing to do whatever it takes to win. Like you'll get in the trenches with them if necessary to win, which brings up something we haven't talked about, which is huge, like freaking huge, is that you actually offer a guarantee on your program.
Yes. Yep. So I guarantee that you'll make your money back. And if you don't, I will keep coaching you until you do.
And that means, like you said, whatever it takes to get the win.
Yeah.
As long as they're willing to do the work with you. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not like, well, okay, well, go make me some money then. But yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I think that's a fair trade. But nobody offers that, because I've seen situations where they're like, yeah, come on in and learn. And at the end of 90 days, they're like, have a nice day. Hope you learned something. And that's not you. I think that's important. That's why I actually want you to do this.
Yeah. And it's important to know that it's not a reality TV show, right? All they show you is like, oh yeah, they get a couple humps along the way. That's not the reality of it, right? The reality of it is that could happen every day.
Right.
Like you get bad news every day. It's like, oh, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
But that's why you put the buffer in, and then you just deal with it. Because the opposite of that is not deal with it. You don't make any money.
Understand. So in your scenario, we're talking, you kind of really talk about the whole gamut of things. You talk about like these back insider deals where you get with the networks, you get with the right people, you get the right kind of connections that offer you these really great deals and offer kind of an insider type investing that's happening there. We have people who will invest with you. So it's kind of a cash transaction. It's all done pretty quickly, fast, and efficiently. Do you help people fund up front? Like, do you have resources available to you that like if I come to you and I really, really, really want to learn this stuff, but I don't have a lot of cash flow coming in. Do you help people like get started from ground zero?
Yeah. So we have a financing program. So they can finance the whole program and get started that way.
Including your training?
Yep.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and so just to kind of give an overview of my training, it's a weekly call. We do 1 hour a week, and then you have what are called quick time calls. So if you're in the middle of a deal and you need a question answered, you can just shoot me a text and I'll get on the phone with you as soon as possible. And there's not much that I haven't done, so I can pretty much answer the question, or at least point you in the direction to go find the answer.
Got it.
And then so we don't start doing deals like the first day. And the reason why is we want to create a foundation, because if you have a foundation created, the deals will start coming to you.
Yes.
I mean, instead of you going to look for the deals will just start coming to you. Yeah. So that's the way I teach it.
All right. And when you're teaching that and you do that, and I love the idea of the quick call, because that's where people get hung up. Like, okay, well, I got a weekly coaching call, but I got to wait till Tuesday to get the call, and I'm in the middle of the deal right now, and I'm sweating, and then so that's awesome. I love that piece of it. And how long is your course?
It's 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, so 12 weeks of training, and then we still do a weekly call just to keep you motivated, keep you on track, and stuff like that.
Well, I know you personally, so I know that you are an accomplished real estate investor, but beyond that, and as you point out today, a karate instructor, a former karate instructor, but you're also an amazing business coach. So this training is not, it is about real estate, but it's really about building the business of real estate investment. Is that right?
Yeah. And not only that, keep your mindset straight. I was a head coach for an international leadership program for almost 7 years.
Okay.
And so I have a lot of training and development in keeping like a positive attitude, if you want to call it that, but actually really just taking action, because the action is the only thing that's going to produce the result. So if you're not taking action, you're not going to produce a result, the desired result anyways. You'll produce a result, just not one you want.
Yeah, it's funny because and you don't see this, and the viewers don't see this, but on my computer, my desktop, my background literally says knowledge is power. And every single day I remind myself that knowledge is power, but action is everything. So it says knowledge is power, but I have a little yellow sticky underneath my monitor that says, but action is everything, because you can know a lot and not do anything about it. So totally understand that. That's actually really good, because you come to real estate investment not just as you're going to buy, fix, and flip, but you really kind of give a bigger training in that you're teaching mindset, you're teaching accountability, you're teaching action, you're all those things are included. So it's really I'll say a nice, real well-rounded course, because it's not just one thing, but it's all focused on the one desired goal.
Yeah, and out of that course, you'll get a new way of living, and it sucks that some people just want to be rich and be the richest man in the graveyard. It's not. I don't know. Did you have any fun?
Right.
I love to have fun. It's just, and if I'm not having fun, I'm not doing it right.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I absolutely. Matter of fact, my pursuit of passion is fun, and then money just comes because I'm always having fun what I do, and you know that of me already. So, just to wrap things up, all your details, all your contact information, all that sort of stuff, I'm going to put in the bottom of this video, so we'll get a hold of you the right way. But if you were to summarize, like, for us, just kind of like a last thought on this, tell us what makes you special. What's your USP, your unique selling proposition?
Yeah, so I gotta say, it's I never quit on anyone, even if they want to quit on themselves, but they still have the desire, and that's the key right there. If they still got the desire, like, I still want to do this, but I want to quit because I'm not doing it right or something,
Right.
and they just get into, I will lift them up and, like, all right, let's just regroup and onward. What's the next action we got to take? And we'll just get through it.
Great.
So, and there's not a lot of trainings out there. Is they give you the knowledge, right? They give you the knowledge, and even if you have a coach, a lot of them are coached in real estate. They're not coached in performance, and there's a big difference.
Yes.
And I coach both of it. So let's say that's my USP.
Okay. And I'm going to add to that, because I'm going to tell you things that really, really triggered me when we talked about this before. One is that you do have a financing system in place that you can actually finance not only the investing, but also the training and everything. So literally somebody can come to you, if they qualify, they can come to you with $100 in their pocket, and they can still do deals, which is amazing. And the other thing I got to say is that the guarantee is awesome. And I love that about you. I've known you for 4 years now, something like that. It's been a while. And I know that about you. So it's important to be able to understand that it's one thing to say that I'll be there for you, but I can tell the audience right now that Ken's going to be there for you, because that's what he does. And I do love there's so many things that you do that nobody else does. It's hard to narrow it down to that one unique selling proposition, but I think those things are very, very important for my listening audience.
Yeah. So I'll just leave you with this. Integrity, if for this business, and when I'm talking about this business, I'm talking about the real estate business community as a whole. If you're somebody that wants to cheat or try to swindle somebody out of money, you are not going to last in this arena at all. So, I still have people that I've done deals with almost 20 years ago. They still call me. They're like, "Hey, you got any deals?" Because I love buying for it. And we know, because they know how the deal is going to go. They, if I tell them they're going to make X amount, that's what they make. So I'll actually lose money to keep my word, or I'll have a conversation that, hey, I'm going to lose some money here. Um, let's just work this out. And last thing is, to just give you an idea of how I live my life is I needed like 80 grand one day to get a deal done. And I done one deal with this guy. And so I knew very little of him. And his name was Daryl. And I called him up and I said, Daryl, I need 80 grand just for like 3 days. He goes, okay, where do you want me to wire the money?
Nice.
That was it. There was no paperwork, nothing. Just
And
where do you
that's,
want me to wire the money?
and I can also attest, integrity is absolutely everything. That's why we resonate together in the things
Yeah,
that we do. Because integrity is absolutely the beginning of all foundational work. If you don't start with the integrity, and that filters through so much in life. I really appreciate your time today. I think that you
yeah.
gave some really good, solid nuggets on the insider secrets. And if you want to reach out to Ken, all his contact information is down below. So I know that you're going to want to reach out to him. You're going to want to find out some more about this. If you're at all interested in real estate investment and being able to do it the right way with the right mindset and the right money and the right funding and the right people behind you, you really got to reach out to Ken.
Thanks, Jason.